Hello everybody, this is Erin with North Star Mystic Tarot, and today we're going to talk about how to give readings to animals. So this means being able to communicate with your pets. This is a beautiful practice that if you're intuitive, you should be able to do this. People say anyone can learn to ride a bike, anyone can learn to draw, anyone can learn to develop intuitive abilities. One way or another, anyone can, you know? So, how do we do it? How do we communicate with animals? Let's jump right in. So, you might find different people have different frameworks, but this is how I learned, okay? So, I learned to communicate with animals in two ways, okay? One way, there's two aspects to this, okay? One way is to develop a connection to your pure heart. What this means is to really hone in on your tenderness, your genuine goodwill toward life, toward animals. In other words, you want to hold the intention and radiate the intention and the energy of someone who wants the best for whatever living creature you're encountering. So you want to hold them in a containment, basically a containment field, an energy field that holds these intentions: tenderness, genuine goodwill, and showing that you are someone who wants the best for that animal. And when you focus these qualities right in the core of your chest, right in your heart, all the way through, and then just breathe this intention through your being into your heart, and then send that out toward the animal, you create an energetic containment for them. And in that energetic containment, you begin talking to their deeper self. So we have here, let's say we have a cute little doggy. That looks like a mouse. I don't think dogs have whiskers like that. You can create whatever animal you want out of this, all right? This is the universal pet prototype. So here is your animal. And typically, we have our ways of relating to our animals that are very pragmatic. And we teach them to sit, we teach them to lay down, we teach them to come, and we teach them to stay, and functional things like that. And they are highly, as we know, motivated by affection, play, excitement, and food. And these are all just sort of your basic aura animal interactions, okay? We'll call this the basic function level that we're used to. This is the practical level, okay? This is our practical engagement with the animal that we all kind of mutually agree this is how we deal with our animals, right? And then when you do psychic work, though, you're going to an inner layer of the aura that gets closer to pure consciousness, being and feeling. You're getting closer to their internal, deeper experience and their knowing. And that will be in their heart chakra. So you're going to connect your heart chakra to theirs. And so normally you would stop here at your level of interaction. When you're doing psychic work, you penetrate through into this internal aura. And this is where we have language with animals. And this is how we communicate with them, is here. So I'll tell you a quick story. I walked into an animal sanctuary, and there was a cage in there on a table. And inside the cage was a beautiful owl. I walked in. I said hello, just instinctively, as soon as I saw the owl. And I connected to this innermost level immediately. I felt an instant rapport with this owl. And so my heart connected to the owl's heart. And I said hello, and I nodded, and the owl looked at me and nodded back. And I walked in with someone who, was open to stuff like this, but wasn't necessarily like a firm believer. And she looked at me like, what did I just witness? What can I say? I'm the owl whisperer. They respect me. And that's what all animal psychics do. Because once you get into that innermost level with your animal, we'll just draw a kitty cat this time. So when you get into the innermost level here, you got your outermost level, and then you go into the innermost level, okay? At this level, we're talking to them as souls, okay? At this level, we are talking to them as beings, not just as functional components of our daily life, or not just as dog or just as cat. We're saying, you are a soul, you are a being, you have feelings. You have feelings, and so by connecting your heart to their heart, you tell them that you are tuned to how they feel. And then they will start to wake up to you, and they may start to communicate things to you. So, I've done readings for groups, like people who have multiple cats, and I would start explaining, I would tune into them and kind of have a dialogue, translate them, and explain what their hangups were with each other. Like one cat was a little too aggressive and dominant, and the other cat felt bullied. And I hadn't watched any of their behaviors. These are just things that they were showing me based on their feeling state, whether they showed me irritation or aggression or fear. They were kind of annoyed with each other. And I explained all this to the owner as she was standing there, and she's like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. And so it was good for her to fully understand the emotional motives behind what, her cat's behavior and why they were picking on each other like that. And so you can tune in and you can get information that relates directly to their personal experience. And another layer to this is an energy field. This is a more expansive energy. What a fiend. An energy field called Pan. So Pan, as many of you may know, is a Greek god of the forest and nature. So Pan is often depicted as a satyr with a particular fondness for goats, but and wine, grapes, chasing nymphs around. A god of earthly delights, a god of food, drink, and women, and of animals. He was just a man, embodied the idea of a man of the earth, right? A god of revelry with his flute, which is why we have the pan flute, right? And Peter Pan. So, but Pan in a spiritual context, Pan is a frequency. And we could still think of Pan as a god energy, a frequency that meets every animal with living consciousness and friendliness. So Pan as an energy field, that I can be fiend. Pan creates an energy of friendliness, life, and vibrant, living, gentle container. So that was the container I was talking about earlier as well. First, you create the emotional container. So first, you create the container between you and your animal. Here's your heart, here's their heart, and you're connecting because you're greeting them as a being, and you're greeting them from your emotions to their emotions. And then that is creating a containment between you and the animal. And that is your emotional container. This is where you create the containment based on your personal relationship. And then you can also create an even wider container that is Pan. And so Pan is if you really want to expand and send healing. So if you want to heal your animal, you can heal them emotionally, or you can heal them physically. You can, help them to calm down, and you can give them messages. But, this is an expanded energy. If you just want to have a heart-to-heart and say hi, you can just create the impersonal emotional container. And if you want to bring in some deep healing and really expanded work with your animal, then you bring in Pan. You just ask Pan to be there. And you look for a calm, gentle, steady energy. So Pan is recognized as being calm, gentle, and steady. Picture birch trees or your favorite kind of tree gently blowing in the breeze in the sunlight. That's Pan. Think of something really calming and pure and happy in nature, and then use that energy to call Pan in. Pan has an energy that feels like hitting a gong. It's very resonant and very tender and gentle as well. So Pan is great for working with animals. So let's say you want to experiment with this and you want to get started. So how do you do that? Well, keep in mind the protocols that I just mentioned, the steps that I just mentioned. And you want to start out when your animal is calm, because they may not be able to fully respond to you if they're really distracted. So wait till your animal is calm, and maybe you're cuddling with them, and then you want to meditate for a minute or two. And you want to tune to your heart, and you want to find peace in your heart, okay? And then after that, you focus gently on your pet's heart. And if you have a dog, they might feel that. They might sigh. You know how dogs do? Or they might roll on their back, or they might look up at you. They might notice that or feel that. A cat wouldn't do more than just give you a slow blink, but you never know. Some people have more affectionate cats. So anyway, focus on that, and then focus on your pet's heart, and then wait a minute. Just wait in that state. And then ask them something real simple, like simple. Okay? Ask a very simple question, like, how are you? Or something. Or hello. Really, really simple. And then what you'll do is you'll listen to your heart and then see if anything arises in your heart. Okay, so after that, you will listen to your heart. And oftentimes, you will hear, sense, feel something. You might hear actual words in your chest. So you might hear words. You might hear them in your mind. You might feel. You might feel intentions or motivations. So it may not come to you in words. Okay. Emotions. And sometimes you might see a visual that they want to show you. So let me give you a few examples of how this can work. You can actually do this. It sounds a little hokey, but it is real. And some of y'all out there are going to know, you understand exactly what I'm saying. You can use this technique on plants and trees. They will talk to you too sometimes. So a friend of mine once had me communicate with all of her houseplants as an experiment, and she didn't tell me anything about them. And so I was tuning in, and I could see that the plant had the capacity to detect visual information, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think that has now been proven as a very strong possibility. But this was like 15 years ago. And we didn't know that. I was like, oh my gosh, plants can see. It was kind of pixelated, but they could see. And I said, it's like I'm looking up at a man with a beard. And when I'm focused down, I see a white cat on the floor. And the man with the beard has a watering can. And she said that the man who gave her that plant had a beard, and he had a white cat. So I was like, oh my gosh, plants can actually tell you. They know you by your face. Isn't that crazy? At least according to psychic visions, they do. And we now know that, plants can recognize quite a lot more than we can because they pick up chemical signals in the air. And so apparently, they can measure, the energy of a plant, how much energy they're putting off. You know how you see people attach electrodes to plants, and they can also, in order to make music, but they can also detect, is the plant in a calm, resting state, or is it the energy is fast and frequent and anxious seeming. And so apparently, if a man came and started chopping off, branches and leaves off surrounding plants, the other plants would create this alarm frequency that they called the plant scream, which is terrible. But the man left, and then when he came back again, they created the alarm signal again. They recognized him. So anyway, so you can do this with plants. Plants can show you visuals and things like that. And animals can too. And animals, mostly in my experience, animals will kind of show you intentions, motivations, and emotions that come so strongly that it almost feels like they're speaking words to you, but they may not actually be. Like if someone sends you a vibration of anger, you may not hear the word anger, but it's such a familiar emotion that you know it. So if a cat, for example, is angry that there's a younger cat that joined the household or something, you may not say, I'm angry, but it will show you anger and it will be very obvious. And so, but you might also hear words. Another example of pet communication is I was seeing a guy who told me that he had a gray cat that was losing its hair. And he said he didn't know what to do. He was at work a lot, so he thought maybe the cat was lonely. But so every time he came home from work, he would pick the cat up and hold it up in the air and talk to it like a baby. Sometimes he'd say, you're such a good boy, and you take such a good care of me. You take such good care of the boy. You know, he called himself a boy too. And so he wanted to find out why his cat was losing hair. And so he had a pet communicator psychic come, and she tuned in, and the cat said, I don't have a job. And she asked, what's the matter? He said, I don't have a job. And she said to the cat, well, surely you have some kind of job. And you could say this to them out loud, but you can also just say it with an intention in your heart or in your mind as you have that open channel with them. Since that's how the communication is occurring, it's usually the way to go. So anyway, she asked the cat, like, what, you know, surely that you have some kind of job. And the cat said, well, I take care of the boy, which shows, you know, and she didn't know that he said that to his cat. You take good care of the boy, you know. She didn't know. And it was such a peculiar, you know, a way of saying it. And it's so specific to their situation that he was just amazed. And so he said after that, every time he'd get home from work, he said, you do such a good job at taking care of the boy. You know, you take such good care of me. You're doing such a good job, you know. And the cat's hair stopped falling out because it felt like it had a purpose. And so this is the kind of thing that you can use pet communication for. You can help by doing this. If your pet has any kind of problem, you can help them mentally adjust, because that cat literally just needed a purpose. And you can also help them emotionally. You know, I mean, a cat may not understand, like in the case I mentioned to you before, where there was one cat that was bullying another cat and was annoyed with it. You know, you can't always expect a cat to understand empathy the way humans do, right? That seems to be a bit of a stretch to put that onto a cat. Maybe some cats can, just like we see dolphins. Some dolphins are kind of little psychopaths and others are altruistic. You know, maybe some cats have more empathy than others. I mean, it's been shown in studies that even rats have empathy, and if given food, will save some for their rat friend and give it to them. So we may not be able to morally reason with a cat, but you know, you can share with the cat in this hypothetical and literal situation. It's literal to me, hypothetical to you, but you could share with the cat like a perspective taking, like that the younger cat is just wants to play or just wants to fit in, and can you just let it be? You can reason with the cat with very simple step-by-step concepts. So you definitely don't want to deliver a complicated concept or several all at once. You want to deliver acknowledgement of what they told you, and then you're going to want to communicate one concept at a time, kind of like building blocks. So if you were talking to that particular cat, you could say something like, well, you know, let's say the other cat's name is Sam. You could say, you know, Sam is new. Sam is a friend. You know, we like Sam. You know, Sam is family. Just kind of how similar to the little buttons that you see animals pushing, like walk now, or stranger outside, you know. It's similar things, just one little concept at a time to respect their processing speed, because animals process language cues a lot slower than humans do, and they operate differently. They're more aware of their environment, and so they're less focused on emotional communication cues like humans are. So, but they do feel a range of emotions. So most animals, they feel a range of emotion. They really do. Animals can feel, like I said, they can feel anger, they can feel miserly, with resource guarding. They can feel possessive. They can feel, I think I spelled that wrong. You get it? They can feel jealous. They can feel resentment. They can feel protection, protective instincts. They can also feel sympathy. They can feel friendship. They can feel lonely. They can feel left out. They can feel emotional. They can feel squashed or suffocated, like mentally or emotionally, like they're not allowed to do enough things. Like if you have a kind of an alpha animal and it's terrorizing the others, like they can feel suffocated and squashed and their energy can be pent up. And then you might see certain behaviors like peeing on the floor or scratching too much or antisocial behavior like hiding. Sometimes these things might just seem like quirks the animals have, and other times there's this whole soap opera drama going on that you wouldn't necessarily know that they're playing out with each other until you talk to them. So, and sometimes, we get to talk to their more or less conscious mind. It's a little deeper than conscious. Like we're going past that first wall into the second level of being, where they're still conscious. But we can also go to a level that is, they may be consciously aware of it, but it's ultimately more of a soul level. So you have soul level communication. Now let me give you an example of that. So with the soul level communication, you're talking to their spirit, not just their being. You're talking to their spirit, not just their being or their heart or their mind. So in that case, you're focused on a very high vibration, getting like into angelic feeling energies, like heavenly energies. And so in that case, the energy is all heart, and it's like golden and white light that you call in, and just connect only along the frequency of tenderness, okay? It's got to be very gentle to access the soul level communication. And when you get there, get to that frequency, you can ask them for something in a big picture, like lifelong context. So I got 2 kittens, like, I don't know, 20 years ago. I got 2 kittens and I was staying on a farm, and I had lived at that farm for 10 years, and I'd seen many cats come and go, and they always got taken by owls or coyotes. There was farmland all around and farm equipment, and they were getting injured by the equipment or disappearing because they were hunted by coyotes or whatever. And it was just so sad. Like occasionally they would get some cats to keep the rodents under control, and the cats wouldn't last more than 6 months, maybe a year max. And it was just really sad. And so I asked my cats, because they had to be outdoor cats, because where I was staying, we couldn't have indoor cats. So I asked them, will you not die, please? Will you stay with me? And I just spoke to them with this deep, heartfelt request. Please don't die. They are the only cats. Both of them survived. And they're the only cats. They survived for 10 years out there. And one of them was adopted by another family. And the other one lasted, 10 to 12 years before he disappeared. And that's not bad. for a cat's life, especially one that is on a farm. So they listened to me and they didn't die. And I was so grateful, They found their ways and means. And they had each other and they had places to go and they didn't die. So yeah, you can talk to them on the soul level, if they're sick or if you have to go on vacation and leave them behind. And you really want to talk to them on a deep level and let them know you're coming back and try to help them not feel anxious. So this is for, like I said, this is for like big things or like deeply felt things. If you want to talk straight to their soul. And again, that's their deepest intelligence of their intention. This is their intention for life, for their life experience. So it's kind of like getting to the spiritual DNA level. And then there's another form that can happen, another form of communication that is telepathic and spontaneous. So this is the spontaneous. This is when you leave your dog with a sitter and then 15 minutes before you get over there to pick them up, they're already waiting at the door, even though there's no way they could know, technically, because they can feel you. They can feel your intentions. So this is when we have, usually when you're separated, then you can like feel their worries sometimes. You can feel their emotions. And then you can calm them. You can calm their anxiety. I do that with my little doggy Kenny a lot. That's our primary way of communication, is spontaneous, because he's very much a Velcro dog, and I rarely leave him anywhere. And I leave him with sitters, and if it's a new sitter or if I'm gone longer than usual, I will feel his anxiety. Like he starts to worry, is mom not coming back? Because he's a rescue, and he sometimes worries that I'm not coming back. So I can tell him, yep, I'll be back soon, so that you can talk to them telepathically. And when you do that, make sure you always put emotions with it. So you want to send emotional messages. So if I say, I'll be back soon, I want to send that with tons of love and connection feeling in my heart. So that, because that's what they understand the most. And when you want to talk to them in the physical world with your voice, just talk really slowly, because they process at about half the speed that we do. And they'll understand you better. And then you can also start combining your verbal communication with the telepathic and emotional. Why did I write soon here? Unless I was telling a story. That's hilarious. You can send emotional messages. But yeah, so make sure you combine, whether it's telepathically or verbally. If you want to combine them together, you want to send the emotional feeling of it, of what you want to say to them. And that emotional feeling will help kind of create that cord between your hearts where you communicate your intentions heart to heart. And that is something that animals can really grasp and understand, especially dogs. And some animals you might find respond more to the heart as the primary connector. Some might respond a little more to the third eye to third eye or mind to mind connector. When I spoke to the owl that one day, it was primarily through my third eye, but definitely the heart also is involved, because the whole animal and nature kingdom of Pan is very heart-based. Even though nature can be very cruel sometimes, the motivating, energetic movements that leads animals into living and motivating them to live is that over all-encompassing love that unites them. And it's so hilarious, like when you see videos of divers petting fish and they're just like wiggling and they're just loving it and coming back for more. And even eels like to be scratched on the head. And you would think that that is not an evolutionary conditioned response, because fish usually don't seem to show, at least they don't appear to show affection to their young. Like, so where do they learn affection? So I think it's innate that many living creatures enjoy interactions because they are celebrating that joy of life through their everyday experience as being part of the animal kingdom. That's my philosophy. So that's how you communicate with animals. And the biggest thing is just to see all animals as friend. Very Steve Irwin style, right? And I think people who are particularly good with animals generally hold this attitude. My dog Kenny's groomer has this way about her, and she can just, he hates having his nails trimmed, but she can just tap him just lightly and be like, "Can I take your paw?" And he'll just let her do it, and then she'll just trim. And it's absolutely amazing because she knows, she's mastered how to convey friend to the dog, to my dog, and to all dogs. So I hope you enjoy this. We all just love animals, and I adore them. And it's worth spreading this knowledge and practicing and learning your own unique connection with the animals in your life. And if you try any of this and it works for you, let me know down in the comments or send me a message. I usually include my website with, there's like a contact link on my website in the description if you want to share. If you tried any of this out and you want to share it with me, I would absolutely love to hear your experiences. So yeah, thanks for joining me on this adventure today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.